Yeah, sure. Currently, it's very difficult to say actually how many patients we really have. You have to differentiate in Germany between the public prescriptions, where we know the numbers, and the private prescriptions, where it's very hard to say how many private patients we have at the moment. Yeah. So, but the estimations are around 50 to 60,000. But I just read an article on MJBiz Daily that there are apparently 100,000. But it's very hard to say how the actual numbers are.
So, I mean, there are some more data that are published by the publication companies. So, as of I think it was June 2020. There were for this year about 160,000 prescriptions that were covered by the publication insurance companies. So this is public data that is available. But first of all, I have to just confirm what Lisa just said. There is no public data available for the private health insurance companies. So what we know is that about 90% of the population in Germany is in the public domain, and only 10% are in the private insurance companies, and this will somehow maybe be the split. So if we have this over less than 0.1% of the population being in the field of a cannabis therapy, then it might be up to 80,000, maybe 100,000 if this is slightly more. However, it is not the case that we have very good numbers on how exactly the patient number will be, or is currently.
And to add to that, it's also very difficult to calculate it the way you want it and find better numbers. Of course, there are average prescription sizes that one can make, and by collecting data, probably sizes that one can health insurers and so on and so forth. But you never know how many sort of, if we talk about flower, then grams respective patient in the end gets. And then you could calculate it to a respective number from the amount of product that was brought in. But even this is very difficult at the moment.
Yeah, and as I said in the beginning, there is still a high percentage of self-payers. Those are either publicly insured patients who are still in the process of cost application and have no confirmation, or they just decided to pay for themselves and not get through the hassle of the application. Yeah, so we don't know how many patients we have in that area.
Well, and it's a very huge system. Let's put it that way. Over the last years, I could see that the initial supply was mainly going from the Netherlands into Germany. Now I see more and more manufacturers starting into the business, which are coming from other European states. And then you had initially manufacturers also in Canada. Now other countries like Macedonia, Colombia, Israel are also entering the market, or companies from those countries. So it's a very diverse set. You have companies who have a pharma background, have a good understanding of quality and what it needs to manufacture GMP compliant. On the other hand, you have companies that just start and come more from an agricultural mindset, let's put it that way. And if you want to enter the European market, you have to have GMP compliant material. And that's where you have a circle, we say in German, a hen and egg situation, because the manufacturer has to have a GMP inspection performed. On the other hand, this can only be triggered if a local wholesaler is actually applying for the licenses here in Germany. So this German wholesaler could say, I want to import product from a manufacturer in Canada, and the authority then reviews the whole documentation and realizes, or it's obvious that GMP inspections are missing for that manufacturer, this then triggers, let's say, the activities to perform an inspection. And it's clear that there's quite a lot of interference between, or not, collaboration needed, let's put it that way, between the wholesaler in Germany and the manufacturer. They also have to have a good agreement in place, how they plan to work together. So there's a lot of preparation necessary before you can actually bring those products into the market to comply with high quality requirements, according to European GMP, GDP, and German GDP and GMP requirements.
And I think also
I'm actually surprised that you. Sorry, go ahead, Linus.
Sorry, Constantin, but okay, I'll start. And just to add to that, I think it's sometimes the understanding between the manufacturing side on the one side, and then the people here in Germany, if it's the distribution part, it's the importing arm, or if it's both in one, then it usually goes into two different directions, and the understanding of the market is not clear. So there needs to be a lot of collaboration, even though large companies, let's say from North America or even from various European countries who are bringing in products, have a very clear understanding on how they think the market develops. However, what we must and what I must admit is that it's that we are not at a stage in the market where it's simply needed to bring new product onto the market. It is that we need product that has this additional value add. We were talking about education, we were talking about evidence, and so on. And that is really crucial. And only with a realistic view on the market, I have the possibility to really bring products to the market and not simply sell them through a various group of wholesalers. And then in the end, I sort of made a step forward as a producer. I think what is key is that also from a producing side, they need to understand that we as a wholesaler can bring a lot of value to them, organize sales forces for them, organize the respective sort of market access, how you call it, and also organize the importation process. And I guess we have quite a great set of companies in this call who is able to sort of cope with all these different kind of questions that there might be. But it's really sort of a finger pointing into the direction of the producers to really take the time, develop a relationship with the respective wholesaler, and work out a strategy for the market, and not simply growing products because it will be sold anyways. We are not at this stage anymore. We need to really define the product, make evidence available, and bring this in a structured manner into the market. Sorry, Constantin, again.
You pretty much captured all of what I wanted to say. I was surprised, Xenia, to hear your remark that you see a lot of pharmaceutical background from the suppliers and manufacturers. I actually think you also mentioned some others come from the agricultural background. That's what I see more. And I think one of the challenges that we have in the German system is the way it was designed. It was heavily reliable on imports and still is. There's no domestic manufacturing that kind of, has a natural understanding of the pharmaceutical requirements. So what we do is we look for manufacturers that have to be taught, like, what does it mean to cultivate cannabis under pharma standards, and they have to be taught that by the wholesalers and imports who themselves, and that includes us, don't have prior experience in cultivating cannabis. So I think that this is pretty much a challenge in this whole thing, and I think the German market needs to mature into its own market, and that will only happen once we have our own product in Germany and can compare that domestically grown cannabis to other products that we import, and really make sure that what comes into Germany is pharma standard.
Yeah, maybe to comment back, it's the background they have. I didn't speak about the final product. Some do have a pharma background and understand the processes and needs behind, and understand what GMP is all about. because we do see at ProPharma Group that our customers need quite some training on what is a quality management system. Why do you need specifications for your products? And also the wholesalers are asking for a constant delivery of quality. And we see quite some fluctuations causing then also product recalls and things like that. So that all has to do with that training of manufacturers, that they understand what kind of product they need to deliver and what kind of system and processes they have in place at their sites. And you may have local GMP inspections going on for those manufacturers, but if you have a European one, it might still be quite different and the understanding of regulations. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe to start with, the only benefit I can think about is that there is ongoing discussion. As you have different opinions, there is some space for innovation because people have to talk to each other. What are the pitfalls? Definitely that still in Germany you see that some local authorities classify cannabis flowers, for example, that are intended to be vaporized by the patient, classify them as API. Others classify the product as a final drug product, a bulk product. And this is still something that is, in the end, leading to a distortion of competition because you have a different set of rules that is applicable depending on who's competent for you. And it brings us to a problematic situation that any import business and national business might face some constraints depending on where the pharmaceutical entrepreneur sits, depending on where the products comes onto German ground. And it might be the case that you have several different authorities competent for the same case because the external warehouse is somewhere in Hessen, the importer is in Bavaria, and there might be someone wholesaling the product who is in I don't know, Berlin or Brandenburg. And this definitely leads to discussions, and as we observe that there might be the prevailing opinion that cannabis flowers, even if intended for use of the patient by vaporization or similar, will be considered a drug product and not an API.
I think that's exactly brings it to the point where we are right now. It's that different understanding between API and pharmaceutical that we need to cope with, but also different other opinions on how to bring products in and release products also in Germany. It is crucial to understand and help the manufacturers to really guide them through the process, how the products can be brought into the market and share this knowledge. I guess this is all needed from the wholesaling side. And especially to add to what Xenia said in the beginning, it's the products that need to be designed from a producer level. And only when those products are designed and we are at a stage where we sort of have certain specifications with the product, we are able to sort of guide the way through Germany. And that's exactly the setup where we as wholesalers can really help. On the other hand, also beginning at the first step with the EU GMP certification, that's very, very early stage where most of the companies are, and they quite some time away from the market, but of course they need sort of our guidance on this as well. So we see ourselves as a middleman in that, and especially trying to sort of legalize the regulatory and make a lot of approvals based on the way we are doing the business at the moment. But there is no harmonization yet. And I guess that's also one thing which we tackle as an association of cannabinoid companies in Germany to really make it a understandable and very sort of straightforward way of what needs to be done in order to bring products in and what quality standards needs to be met, because it doesn't make sense to find somehow a way how to get around the regulatory hurdles. We see possibilities that they're trying to go through countries in North Europe. We see options through islands where they try to sort of move around EU GMP for getting products in, but that should not be the case. We should sort of harmonize this and make it a very straightforward way so that everyone understands how to get the products in.
That's a good point. I mean, the confusion starts already with the avenue on which product can come to Germany. To give you an example, we cannot import from Uruguay because Uruguay has legalized recreational cannabis. At the same time, you can do import from Canada despite them having legalized recreational cannabis. In Portugal, you can buy directly from the manufacturer. In the Netherlands, you have to go through the OMC, the Office of Medicinal Cannabis. So it's all really difficult to understand. And that's surprising to me because the rules are actually, and the UN convention is actually pretty straightforward. It requires every country to have a medical cannabis agency. And through this cannabis agency, you can purchase cannabis, and whatever you produce, you sell to them. And I would appreciate if everybody stuck back to these rules, which we have there. And if you're not happy with them, you amend them. But it is actually quite some confusion out there.
And Constantin, if the policymakers don't see and understand that if rules are not working, it makes sense to modify or amend, what I expect will happen is that the industry will start to create own rules by leaving some things to the courts and taking competition and competitive actions, and then by this means somehow tackle some issues. Because if your own authorities tells you that you have to meet specific microbiological limits that you only can meet by irradiation, you won't accept that someone else is placing the identical product on the market without irradiation and with higher limits. And that's why I think if there's no standardized and harmonized system that policymakers agree on, it will be left to the courts. And this might be a situation where we won't create best practice, but something that is individually decided by someone, by a court that actually is not that much into the cannabis and the pharmaceutical regulation.
I'm also surprised, especially for this radiation topic you just mentioned, Jakob, that all the wholesalers currently are officially obliged to apply for this radiation license. So even though they all receive, or many of them might receive similar product, they all have to file for the license, which should be something also to consider, that maybe the manufacturer should be one providing this as part of a let's say substance dossier to the authority. We have that for pharmaceuticals, and then other wholesalers could refer to this existing information at the authority. That would save a lot of work, resources, money, and so forth. So I see there's still quite some room for improvement.
Yeah, definitely. One thing to add is that it's not only the irradiation license, but you are obligated as you are placing a product, or you are considered, at least in some states, to be the pharmaceutical entrepreneur when placing those products we are talking about on the market, which will obligate you to install some pharmacovigilance related processes. So you need a person that is equivalent to what is called the Stufenplanbeauftragte, which is, I think, embarrassing that you have a system where where we don't manage to get it working because of we're not able to bring the manufacturer or someone who holds the final responsibility of the market. But we somehow see that on a level where it doesn't make sense to regulate this stuff on the level of wholesalers. We see that now everyone applies for those radiation licenses, which is some pain. It is a lot of money that is spent, and from the perspective of drug safety, I don't understand that this is necessary.